Locker Room, with all the sports news you need, live.
Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the final Locker Room of the year. We are approaching 2025 before the big man comes down the chimney and delivers some presents, but probably not anything for Hearts because we've apparently been really bad this season. I am your host, Graeme Duffy. As always, delighted tonight to be joined by the one and only Robbie Collins. Robbie, how are you, mate? How's your week been?
Yeah, not bad. Speaking about Father Christmas, apparently he's dropped a dodgy lasagna in someone's training pitch because half our team seem to be dropping like flies with injuries. So that has not been fun. I'm a bit nervous for the game tomorrow. Obviously, I know you're not happy after Hearts' European performance, so there's a lot to get stuck into only a week before Christmas.
There certainly is. Like I say, it's the last show of 2024, so drop us your comments, drop us whatever you want to talk about tonight, and we'll try and get through as much as we can. A busy show. Hopefully we'll be joined by Mikey as well, who might make an appearance. Probably dressed as an elf, but we'll never know. But anyway, we've got a lot to get through. As I said, we've got games tomorrow. We have a game tonight, actually. Motherwell against Kilmarnock on National Premier Sports, but also the championship game as well between Queen's Park and Wraith Rovers. So we have a lot to get through, but let's start with me having an absolute meltdown and a major rant about Hearts after yesterday. So yesterday, Hearts had a chance to play in Europe for the first time since 1989 after Christmas. We played Moldovan club Petrol Club, who are already out of Europe and who haven't won a game in the league, and we drew 2-2. We went 1-0 down in 21 minutes. We managed to get back to 1-1 in 64 minutes to James Wilson. Blair Spittle then put Hearts 2-1 up on 70 minutes, but an 83rd minute penalty gave Petrol Club a point, and due to goal difference, Hearts went out because we couldn't finish in the top 24. I am still furious after yesterday. It was an absolute embarrassment, but before I get on to my thoughts on things about Hearts just now, Robbie, I know that you watched the game yesterday as a neutral. I mean, I've seen a few folks saying this, and I kind of agree with it as well. It's not just embarrassment to Hearts, it's embarrassment to Scottish football. To be knocked out by a team like Petrol Club is, and I put it on the tagline there, it's humiliating.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, to Hearts, that is a real embarrassment to them, first and foremost, before we even start talking about the rest of Scotland. To have, to have won your first two games in the Conference League looking so comfortable, I think there was a stat that Hearts were 90%, 98% likely to qualify at the group stage after that. To then go on and get knocked out, I cannot believe the way the game went last night. I mean, there's so much fallout for the game that I know you've been very vocal online that, it's not good enough for the players. And again, I was listening to Neil Kreitzler say stuff about the players' mentality and how he thinks he came into the job and it's a positive mentality in the dressing room. I mean, if that's a positive mentality, then what's a weak mentality? Because it's not good enough and it's really, really bad. For Hearts, there's got to be questions asked up and down everywhere in this club because this Petrol Club team, they're not anything special. You look back at the game, you look at the two goals they scored, they're so easy. They score the penalty, but they also score the one in the first half where the ball just, the boy runs through the midfield. There's no one tracking down the midfield, easy ball to the back post. And I don't know where Craig Gordon is, he seems to be in space at that point. It's just so easy. I mean, Hearts should have got through the group stage, and the fact that they didn't is an embarrassment. It's as simple as that to Hearts and to Scottish football. Now, it looked like there was progress for a bit. We have seen some bad results in the past, the likes of Celtic this season losing to Dortmund. But there's also been improvement. Celtic managing to basically get themselves through to the playoff spot. You've got St Mirren and Kilmarnock who put in very valiant efforts against two top European teams. So it felt like there was a lot of progress happening, but it feels sort of like, that thing where you get a shot in the foot after every, you're climbing a mountain and then a snowstorm comes and hits you and puts you back down 20 feet. It's one of them where it's, we're going 2 steps up, but 10 steps back. We never really seem to be going anywhere in Scotland, and what a chance it was for Hearts to get through. I mean, first time since, 1989? Mm-hmm. Hearts still have been within a knockout in Europe, so this was a real chance, and Hearts absolutely blew it.
I said after we beat Ammonia a few weeks ago, I said the one game that I think could get us through, because I thought 9 points would be enough. The away games, they were going to be difficult against Bruges, against Copenhagen. We should have beat Heidenheim with our chances, but I said that the game that I thought would get us through was yesterday. I could not have been more wrong, and what really concerned me, after we lost to Kilmarnock last week against 10 men, which was embarrassing enough, I thought we'll see a reaction. We'll come out really firing. We'll see something. There was nothing. There was no energy. There was no energy from the stands either, which surprised me. It was really quiet for a European game at the start. And then, you're looking at the game overall, and it was kind of side to side. It was backwards. It was very little penetration. We had one chance before they scored. Kyle Schusko from a corner kick from a header. But then they got the park, and you were right. Looking at the goal, the first goal we conceded, the space the guys got in the middle of the park was ridiculous. But you look at the cross coming in, Craig Halkett, the guy's behind him. Craig Halkett knows he's there, doesn't get anywhere near close to him. And again, I think Craig Gordon should take it. Now, we've played 26 games in all competitions this season. We've conceded 39 goals. Here's another stat as well. And I put this on Twitter earlier. In the 26 games we've played, we have fallen behind in 20 of them. And we've won one game. That is ridiculous. An absolutely shocking stat. And I'll say this now, that Petrol Club team is one of the worst I've seen at Tynecastle, and yet again, we've failed to win. It is beyond a joke now.
Yeah, I mean, with the Petrol Club, I mean, if they're top of the league and dominating, fair enough, they would have been full of confidence. But this is a team that's third in the Moldovan division. They're not exactly high flying in the league. They're struggling at the best, compared to where they should be. So, that makes it even worse. But I sort of felt bad that I believe it was it 3 goals in about the space of 10 minutes that knocked Hearts out, because it was, I think it was TSC that scored 3 past Noah in about 10 minutes, and I was like, only in Scottish football that happens. But again, it's all Hearts' fault at the end of the day, and I think it was actually interesting to see Shanklin come out and say that after the game, in the press, that it was all them to blame, because it was. But, Graeme, I want to sort of ask you, with the substitutions looking at the game, this is a European game. This is a chance to make history, and you guys bring on Liam Boyce. Now, I know it was towards the end of the game, but it's substitutions like that baffle me, because, all due respect to Boyce, he's not a great player, and he probably shouldn't be playing for Hearts in a sort of day and age. So, I mean, what were your thoughts on the substitutions as well?
This is true, right? This happened last night. I had my laddie with me, Nathan. He's 12-year-old, and he comes to a few Hearts games with me yesterday. Yesterday was with me last night. I said Liam Boyce is coming on. Nathan turned to me and said, "Why are we bringing him on?" It's like, mate, I completely agree with you. Honestly, that's my 12-year-old laddie saying that. Even he knows how bad Liam Boyce is. And the subs just made no sense to me. Now, I know you're chasing a game, but I've said it previously. You're bringing on George Grant. You're bringing on Liam Boyce. You're bringing on Kenny Vargas. They are nowhere near the quality the Hearts need. I felt sorry for a couple of players last night. I thought Cammy Devlin worked his socks off. I thought James Wilson took his goal well. Macaulay Tate came in at the midfield. I thought he did well. But they're young laddies. I'm looking for the more experienced players. And again, the one player I would say I would not criticise is James Penrice, because I think over the course of this season he's been our best player, but he's a left back. I mean, seriously, when my laddie is talking about Liam Boyce coming on and say, why is he coming on? That sums up for me. He will not be there in January, and he can't be there in January because he's not good enough. And again, before we came on tonight, I said to you that the Foundation of Hearts have emailed the owners of the club, which is the Hearts fans, and basically at the end of the sentence, the guy has said, stick with the team. Now, I'm going to read a few things out here to you, right? We have, this season, 26 games. Now, I mentioned earlier, we've had 20 games that we've gone behind and we've won 1. We've only won 5 games this season. We have won 3 in the league. We've lost 16 and we've drawn 5. We have a wage bill of 16.5 million. We're bottom of the Premiership and we're out of Europe to a team in the Moldovan League. And the Foundation of Hearts have come out and said, stick with the team. Read the room. Read the room. Because that is ridiculous to make a statement like that after last night. They do not. They said that they understand the anger of fans. I don't think they do. Because last night has gone way past anger. It's apathy.
Yeah, I mean, to give it some positives, I suppose, in the team, I thought, again, as you said, Penrice, I thought actually he had a very good night. I thought he was impressive on the attack, especially. I thought Danda was all right. I mean, to answer your question, this was the same Kenneth Vargas that came out 2 months ago and was claiming that he needs to be playing against better opposition. if there's ever a thing to prove yourself, you're playing against Moldovan team Petro Club. I mean, if you can't prove yourself in that fixture, what's the point? It's really bad, and obviously Shankland as well, no scoring again. Now, look, I feel like people sometimes put too much pressure on Shankland. I don't think he should be scoring every game. You know, he should be scoring majority of games, and I think you'll admit his record's not been good enough this season. But it's games like this where you need Shankland to be clinical, and I actually think he done all right for the first hot score, I think it was. But you know, how bad is it when Shankland's no hitting the heights, because it seems to affect a lot of the whole team.
We've scored 24 goals in all competition season. We've got 3 players on 3 goals. Spittle, Shankland, and a 17-year-old lad in James Wilson, who actually look quite composed with his finish. But I've said it previously, there are games this season where Shankland hasn't scored, but his overall game's been actually fine. Yes, he does make the goal yesterday, makes it difficult for the defender, but his overall game was pretty poor last night. He offered very little. I'll get to a couple of the comments here. Even our regular Paul Donaldson, hi all, watched the game last night. The first goal was offside, but Hearts were poor overall, and the margins between qualifying and being knocked out are so fine in this new format in Europe, as I well know. Rambo Jambo 51, wonder who you support. Evening all, serious questions need to be asked on all fronts, but Neil Critchley looks like a deer in headlights and trying to persist with the same tactics hasn't worked in weeks now. And that's the thing. I've been trying to defend Critchley because I said it's not his squad. He's come in. I actually think a lot of the games we've played all right. We've just not got the results. But that's the last 2 games now against Kilmarnock and yesterday where nothing's changed. I don't see what we're trying to do. At the start, I could see what we're trying to do. I could see we were trying to press from the front. We were trying to be more aggressive. These last 2 games, I've not seen that. Like, he was angry last week against Kilmarnock, like we all were, to not beat 10 men. And I expected a reaction last night. I didn't see one. And then, like you mentioned there, it's basically the same subs as last week. Liam Boyce, George Grant. It's the same subs that do nothing. And again, watching a professional footballer, and I think I said this in the group chat, I might not have done, but I've said it somewhere else. I don't think I have ever seen a professional have as bad a first half as Alan Forrest did last night. Nothing he did came off. And I've said it already, and I make no apologies for this. If he never played for Hearts again, I'd be delighted. But because of the situation we're in, the squad we've got, he probably will start again on Sunday. And he's done nothing to deserve it.
And I think the interesting is with the Hearts squad is when you actually look at it on paper, it is filled with very, names that have either experienced in Scotland or very big names. When you look at the players like Jan Dandis, Blair Spittles, Shanklands, even down to Penrice, it's in a very experienced team. The fact that it's no clipped this season is baffling to me because we know how the season ended last year and how well Hearts actually done. So to go into this season, you've changed manager. Croucher's been in the job since I think it was midway through October he got hired at Hearts. To ask you how much pressure actually is on Croucher here, because football, as people say, is a results game, and results are going so against Hearts right now that do you think it's no out of the picture to put some pressure on Croucher, because if results don't improve, he's only going to end up the same way Naismith did.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people on a few different social media platforms saying that his time is up, is not good enough. I think it's too early to say that. I think there has been games this season, I think, where since he's come in, we have played well. We've just not got the results. And I can see what he's trying to do. But like I said, the last 2 games have been really, really poor. And his comments last night after the game are the first time that I've disagreed with him. Because he basically said that he thought we played well. I don't think we did at all. He said we had 50 crosses into the box. It wasn't like we weren't trying. But all the crosses were very similar. They were straight to the defender. To be fair, we had probably, I think we had 13 corners. There were 3 that we should have scored from. Kyle Rose missed a hat-trick of chances last night, but it still wasn't good enough. We're looking at set pieces to try and break this team down. That's not good enough. I think it's difficult to say it's under pressure because he needs a January window. But I've said it already, I don't think that's going to change anything. We need to see a massive, massive reaction. And I think I keep saying this every week, and I've not seen one yet. But we've got St Johnstone on Sunday at home. Now, I think St Johnstone's been improved. I'm sure Alistair would say the same thing if he was here. I think they've improved. And they've got a guy in Mackenzie Kirk, former Hearts player, of course, who's scoring goals. They've got Kim Pioka and Sidibe up front that have got real pace that we don't have. if I'm St Johnstone looking at that game yesterday, and the fact that Hearts keep conceding, I'm licking my lips at this. And honestly, I hate saying this as a Hearts fan, but I'm worried about St Johnstone because they could generally come to Tynecastle and beat us. Another thing as well is we've not won a league game after Europe this season, and I don't see that changing.
Yeah, I mean, your point in set pieces is interesting because it should be the teams that, are away from home that they try to put set pieces in on Hearts and they try and put crosses into the box, but it seems like Hearts are doing it. And I thought it was interesting last night. I know there was a few chances as well where Petrol Club had, where I think it was the number 11, had a really good chance, an open header for a set piece, and he somehow puts it in the bar. But, as much as it's all right to do this sort of set piece scenario, you need to be able to defend them. And again, if St Johnstone are putting long balls and throw-ins and crosses into the box against St Johnstone, I mean, when you play St Johnstone, I don't think Hearts are going to be able to defend them because you couldn't defend them against Petrol Club, and I don't see you being able to do it against St Johnstone, who are probably a more physical side than Petrol Club, to be honest, in terms of, the league we're playing. It is a very physical league, so for Hearts, you need to work on not just the attacking side of set plays, but the defending as well, because I actually thought some of the Hearts defending last night was absolutely awful.
It's been pretty poor for weeks, and I've actually been quite a fan of Halkett recently. I think he's done a lot better, but yesterday I thought he was really poor. Rose was really poor as well. Daniel Oyegoke at right back, I don't know what he offers. He offers nothing going forward. Unlike James Penrice, who's constantly driving at folk, Oyegoke offers absolutely nothing. I look at that midfield. I look at Devlin as a lot of buzz bomb. I thought he was all right last night. Again, Macaulay Tate, I thought he tried his best. James Wilson, like I said, 17, he's trying his best. But I generally look at that Hearts squad now, and I said to start the season, and I regret this now. I said start the season that I think we've got a very good squad. I have to change that now because I don't think it is a good squad at all. I think I've been hoodwinked to thinking it's a good squad. It's not. I generally think there's probably about, I think I said this in the group chat, I think there's about 6 players that I would keep, and the rest, if they left, I wouldn't care. There's so many players in that team that just do not know what it means to be that Hearts shirt. And honestly, I don't think it's been a while since I've heard the reaction like that last night. At half time, the boos, the anger among the fans was like nothing I've heard for a while. And obviously at full time as well, I kind of left a minute before full time. And I don't think I've heard as angry a fan base as that. And I saw actually a picture, I don't know if you've seen it. There's a picture online of Andrew McKinley and Anne Budge being basically abused by a fan just a couple of rows down. There is a real apathy amongst this Hearts support. And honestly, if we get beat on Sunday, which is highly likely, it's only going to get worse.
I mean, it might get worse to the point where, the board need to act and change something, because I know you're saying, correctly, you're right, he's not been given long enough, and I feel like that's one negative thing about our game, is we don't give managers chances to try and improve the team. So I think if you're correctly, he knows he's under pressure, but I feel like he should get more time. In terms of the result, I mean, this is a team I still can't believe who's beat us 4-0 at Tynecastle. That result is still played into my head because it's just not that type of team after the season you've had expected to do that. But I think your point's interesting with the squad and, predicting it to be a very good squad before the season started, because on paper, it's a very good squad and it's got some very talented names in there. It just does not seem to be working, and you're right, there does need to be changes, but there is some great players there that can do magic things. We know the season Bliss Spittle and Yandanda had last season for both the respective club, Motherwell and County. They both can be real players. It's a shame it doesn't seem to be working for Hearts at the moment. And to be honest, you're right, Graeme. I mean, with Edinburgh Derby right around the corner, this St Johnstone game becomes even more crucial, because if you go into that and St Johnstone beat you and Hibs win away at Aberdeen, I honestly don't see a world in which Hearts win that game.
And I would like to say season of goodwill, but I don't think it's going to be for me, because our next guest has joined us, Santa's little helper's here. Mikey, how are you?
Well, I don't think that was necessary, Graeme, but yeah, I'm not doing too bad. Just got back, so a bit late, but oh well, better late than never.
How's your week been?
It's been all right. It was improved slightly by last night, but
I knew you were
I'm only joking. I mean, it's been all right, but I know that the main sort of talking point will be the Hearts game.
Yeah, well, I've just gone on a rant. But so Paul said the atmosphere sounded fairly toxic throughout a lot of the match, except during the early part of the second half when Hearts were doing well, which I agree with. And Rambo Jambo 51, is it more worrying that the manager's tactics aren't working out or the lack of fight in the players, e.g. Gordon not screaming at Oyegoki for his lethargic energy despite his past being slack? I mean, we're talking about this, Mike, and I know that you're loving this as a Hibs fan, which I really hate having you on now, but no, you are honest, so... But I mean, I'm basically saying that. I mean, I know that you messaged in the group chat yesterday. That first half, I just mentioned to Robbie there, and Paul's mentioned it there. I don't think I've heard Tynecastle as toxic as that during the first half for a while. And I don't usually, when I'm sitting at a game and I'm watching a game, I was at the back of the stand last night and I basically stood up the whole time. I have very rarely booed Hearts off the park. I did yesterday. There is a real apathy around Tynecastle just now, directed at Andrew McKinlay, directed at Am Budge, directed at everybody. But you watched that game last night, obviously, as a neutral. What did you make of Hearts' performance last night? Because I, even now, 24 hours later, doing this show, I'm still raging at how bad we were against basically what I call a pub team. They were awful, and we were even worse.
Yeah, I think it was. I mean, you can throw a lot of sort of buzzwords at it, but I think that it was so slow. It was so. I mean, the way I describe it, it was just pitiful. Watching the performance overall, to go 1-0 down in the manner that he's did. Obviously, the start of the game, I don't think he's were actually that bad. I think that he's kind of put a bit of pressure on from the outset, but then the second that they went ahead, it was just that it seemed as though it would take a sort of moment of magic to get back in it. There was so many crosses going into the box, and it was either held by the goalkeeper or if Hearts would have got it, they wouldn't look like they'd score. But the main thing for me is like the opponent themselves. I know obviously they're playing European football, but this is a side that they've got a largely Moldovan squad, like players wise, and I think it's only 3 of them made it to the last Moldovan national team squad. And I mean, Moldova, not to disrespect them, but I think they're bottom tier of the Nations League, and only 3 of their players are getting in that national team. I think it tells you all you really need to know about it. And I mean, yeah, it was an absolutely terrible performance from Hearts. And I think even when Hearts went 2-1 up, you're just thinking, oh, they're going to probably run away with it now. But then the one thing that I will say against Neil Critchley is that he's sort of set the team up to defend at that point, which I found absolutely ridiculous. I think that's one of the worst managerial decisions I've seen this season, because you could have easily gone and killed that game off. You were in the ascendancy and you just drop back. Petrol Cup got the ball more, they were passing about, and they were the better side for the end, sort of, for that period before they scored. And I mean, it's all Hearts deserve, as much as it might seem like a sort of biased perspective, but if you're going to turn up and play like that against a team that, no disrespect to them, but they are minnows, to perform like that against them is absolutely embarrassing.
Yeah, to put it into perspective, sorry, Graham, I was just going to say, to put it into perspective, the attendance for that game was 17,103. That's what got recorded. Moldova, that Petrol Club Stadium stadium capacity is 1,100. That just puts into perspective how that team actually are. I actually want to ask you guys, where do you think this result ranks in terms of, Scottish teams' bad results in Europe? Because I actually think this might be one of the worst.
Not the worst. It's far from the worst. I mean, the Lincoln Red and Celtic game will always be sort of the worst for me. Rangers lost to Progress Niederkorn, or whatever they're called, a few years ago, and we've seen a few teams like Killie and Motherwell lose to the likes of Connaskey and Sligo Rovers. But the fact it's in a European competition maybe sort of doesn't make it as bad. But I mean, the fact that they'd got 1 point up until that point, and they deserved to get a point away at Tynecastle, it's definitely one of the more embarrassing ones. But I'd put it sort of on a level with the Berker Cara result that Hearts had a few years ago out in Malta. So, I mean, yeah, it was really embarrassing, but I don't think it's the worst I've ever seen.
Yeah, Berker Cara was brutal, and I'm pretty sure that Gretna got beat 5-1 by an Irish team at Fir Park as well in a European game. But yeah, it was dreadful last night. But you mentioned a point there, Mikey, which I completely agree with. And I said this last night as well when we went 2-1 up. I actually said to my lad here, I'll say this again, Mikey, but we're talking about the subs that we made yesterday. I'll get to that in a minute. But I actually said to my lad yesterday, we should be going for this. We're 2-1 up now. It felt like Hearts just thought, right, they've scored one, they won't score again. And then we just sat back, which I found crazy. You have to go for the kill, go and make it 3-1, and then the game's done. I could not understand. I even said, don't make any mistakes here. And then one cross into the box, penalty kick. I do not understand why, whether it was a Critchley thing, whether it was the players, I don't know. But I don't understand that 2-1, when you're in the ascendancy, do you then sit back and just think, right, we'll win the game at 2-1? I could see what was going to happen. I could see it a mile off. The penalty, it wasn't a surprise that they scored because I could see it coming. I do not understand why we sat back at that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that the main thing for me is that had you not sat back and had you just kind of continued on the way that you were playing in that second half, the crowd right behind you, the way that the atmosphere was just sucked out of the game from the tactics. I'd say it is more of a Critchley thing because there was that sort of vast change between the tactics, and that's not just a player thing. It just sucked the atmosphere out of the game, and had the atmosphere been up, had the team continued playing how they were, they would have won that 3 or 4-1. But they invited pressure, and it's one of the weirdest managerial decisions or player decisions, whatever it may be, I've seen this season, because there was absolutely no need to do it, and it had zero benefit. And I don't even know why they think of it. Like, usually when there's a bad decision, you can see the rationale behind it, but dropping back and sort of trying to conserve what you have was probably, it was just completely pointless, and it's the reason why you're out of Europe. And although Critchley, I know it's not his squad and it's not his players, but there's things that you need to do as a manager, and what he's done in a few games this season has been pretty unacceptable from a Hearts perspective. And the interesting thing that I'd ask to you is, if had he come in at the start of the season before a ball was kicked and you were in this position, would you say there'd be more pressure on? Because I think there definitely would be. I think he would have been out the door had he came in at the start of the season rather than that sort of replacement.
No, absolutely. I think if it come a start of the season, we're in the position, I think he'd be gone. It's difficult because it isn't his squad and he needs a January window, but I've said already, I don't even think that's going to change anything. He is under pressure. I've seen a lot of Hearts fans on other social media sites saying that he is under pressure. He has to go. That won't happen. Paul says, when Hearts went 2-1 up, I was sitting thinking, okay, Hearts haven't played well, but they've done enough to scrape through. Losing that goal was really frustrating. Yeah, it is, but I saw it coming. But what I would say as well, Mikey, I said this to Robbie earlier, I don't know if you heard it, but Robbie talked about the subs that Hearts made last night, and he's got a big point because he's right. We brought on Liam Boyce yesterday, and like I said to Robbie, I've got my laddie with me who's 12, and Nathan actually says to me, why are we bringing Liam Boyce on? What's he going to do? And he was right. The subs yesterday, it felt like it was a case of just chucking whatever we've got on. Kenny Vargas, who wants to play at a higher level, as Robbie said, did nothing. George Grant, nothing. Liam Boyce, nothing. Those subs yesterday just felt like a case of, right, well, I've got to try something, just chuck them on. But it was awful. And I said it as well to Robbie earlier. I don't think I've seen a professional have as bad a first half as Alan Forrest. But because of the squad that we've got, he'll probably start on Sunday. But I genuinely think, and before you came on, I mentioned Robbie as well, there's probably about 6 players in that squad that I would keep. And I think I put this in the group chat. The rest, I wouldn't care if we got rid of. But if you're still bringing on Liam Boyce yesterday and against Kilmarnock, you've got major issues.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that the main problem for Hearts is that they've got players from 3-4 years ago who are now just deadwood, kicking about, and they're coming on as impact subs, the likes of Liam Boyce and George Grant. And yeah, I think that's a major concern. 1 second, sorry. My phone is...
I'll come to you, Robbie. I mean, I've basically said that, I've sort of put in the tagline here, how do we fix it? From our side of looking in, how do Hearts fix this? Is it just a case of we need better players in January? Is it a case of Critchley needs to change something? How do we fix this? Because to be sitting bottom of the league with only 3 wins, I mean, we're not actually that far off, like 9th. But how do we fix it?
Yeah, I mean, as a question as an outsider, that it's very easy to look on social media and see some of the outlandish reactions for Hearts fans, and some of them are very rightly so justified after a result like that. But, it seems to me that Kreisler definitely needs this transfer window. He needs to get his own players in it, especially needs attackers in that team because, relying on a 17-year-old up front's not going to do you well all season. I know Shannon can switch it on, but we all know he's no. So I feel like they definitely need another couple of players in the attacking and generally just everywhere over the pitch. They need a few changes. But it seems to go deeper than that. And I think you say, a lot of people might not be happy with the Bold situation and people think the Bold should be sacked. Tell us as an outside, I don't know the full story with that sort of stuff. I think that's much better for someone like you, Graeme, to judge. But that seems to be, looking for the outside, a huge bunch of problems with not just on the part but behind the scenes as well.
Mikey, I mean, I said to Robbie, I don't know if he heard this, but before I came on, the Foundation of Hearts had sent an email out to all the Hearts fans that are owners of the club, myself included, and they said that they understand the anger, the frustration, but at the end of the email, they said that you need to stick with the players. But I read a stat earlier on. We've got a wage bill of 16.5 million. We have played 26 games in all competitions. We've gone behind in 20 of those games and we've won one of them. We're bottom of the Premiership and we're out of Europe when we should have qualified. There was a 90% chance of going out, basically, or 90% chance to go through, and we failed. How on earth can the Foundation of Hearts sit there and go, stick with the players? How can you stick with them when they've won 5 games all season and they're showing nothing that they're going to get out of this?
I suppose the idea of it, from what I can kind of imagine, is that they don't want it becoming toxic to the point where there's the real negative impact on the players on the park. Like, for example, when Hearts went out for the second half, the atmosphere was very flat in the first half, understandably so. It was a terrible performance. But when the atmosphere picks up, the players respond to that and they got ahead in the game. And then they dropped back and the fans then became flat again, which again is understandable. So the team really do seem to play off the sort of fans at the moment from what I've seen. And I guess the only real thing that I could guess is that they don't want it becoming a toxic atmosphere. But the only way to not make that happen is to perform on the pitch, and those players aren't doing that. I mean, the overall performance of the players, just in general this season's not been good enough. And yeah, the main thing, obviously, going behind 20 times in matches and not being able to come back is a terrible stat, and it'd be very worrying. But yeah, the main thing for me is that Hearts aren't cut adrift at the bottom. They're still very much in this relegation battle, and there's still a very good chance they can push themselves up the table. So I guess the only thing that they're going to try and do is try and get the fans on side and try and get them out of this situation, because unfortunately, although it feels like it's the best option at times, sitting there booing and giving stick to your players is not usually what helps them. It's usually just that sort of reaction to them. So I guess what they're just trying to do is try and make sure that doesn't become the norm, because then that is when you start getting the toxic atmosphere and the players end up responding negatively to that. But yeah, I mean, that's all I can really think about, because it's completely understandable the real anger towards the team.
Well, before we leave Hearts, let's talk about the game on Sunday. Robbie, Hearts against St Johnstone. You obviously saw St Johnstone against your team last week, St Mirren winning by 3-2. But I've said it previously, I've said it to Alistair, that's been on the show before, the St Johnstone fan. There is definitely improvement under Valakari. I think last week, I got it wrong. To go 2-1 up, I think he's got to try and see the game out. Obviously, St Mirren managed to win the game. But there is definitely improvement. They look far better going forward. They've got more of a threat. I think Mackenzie Kirk has been excellent. They've got pace in Kimpioka and Sidibe. If it wasn't bad enough for Hearts, this is where Johnston have definitely improved. Defensively, I don't think they're great, but they look a lot more of a threat going forward now than they have for a long, long time.
Yeah, I mean, St Johnstone in the game against us, I mean, the first half's probably the best bit of football you'll see St Johnstone play this season. I thought they were excellent. I think I said this when they played us in Paisley last month, that Valakari plays some of the nicest football you'll probably see with one of the teams down there. It just he's almost like he doesn't change his ways. He's very harsh. He likes to stick to what he knows, and he goes for it every game. And it's refreshing to see, because St Johnstone fans, let's be honest, have had to put up with some horrible football the last couple of years. So to see a team that's actually gone for it every game, and being attacking it'll be refreshing for them to see, saying that they are in the table because, they're not a great squad and they definitely have some problems. The defence being the big one. And, for all the spoke about during the European game, Hearts bad defending, this will be interesting because you've got Kim Pioka and Sidibe for St Johnstone. I don't know if Mackenzie Kirk can play. Is it in his loan contract? I'm not too sure if he can play.
I was thinking about that. I can't remember if he's on loan from us or if it's somebody else.
Yeah, usually with loan spells it works at they can play against a parent club, so I don't know if he can play, but even at that with Sidibe and Kim Pioka up front, they'll cause Hearts real problems. But on the flip side, Shankland, for as much as we spoke about him being off this season, he'll be fancying this against that St Johnstone defence because they're really no good at all. We managed to get at him quite well. I actually thought, I didn't sit on later, but I actually thought us playing Mandron made a huge difference in the game. But for St Johnstone, they just need to keep doing what they're doing because if they can win Tynecastle, I think they'll go 4 points above you. I mean, I know, Graeme, you're saying how close it is in the bottom, but that would be you 4 points stranded getting into an Edinburgh derby. That's real concern. So this match is absolutely massive for both teams. If you can manage to leapfrog St Johnstone, I think they'll get sucked right into that relegation battle, and I think they will be stranded in there eventually. But if you lose, it is real cause for concern for Hearts because I don't see you being able to get out of this anytime soon.
Thanks, Robbie. I was depressed enough before you. I mean, just the mere fact you talk about St Johnstone go 4 points ahead of us. I mean, that is how depressing it is to even be thinking about that with our £16.5 million wage budget. Oh my word, it doesn't get any worse than that. But I mean, Mikey, I've said it before that St Johnstone do look a lot better to watch. They're still not getting the results that the football pro deserves, but they come to Tynecastle, and I said it earlier on as well. Hearts have not won a league game this season after Europe. We won't have thought about that for a while now, but this is a game that if I'm Vallecari and I'm St Johnstone, I'm thinking Hearts are vulnerable here. I think Tynecastle will be quite quiet on Sunday. I don't think we'll even get 10,000 folk in the stadium because there's apathy. If St Johnstone have got any chance to beat Hearts at Tynecastle, it's Sunday.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the main concern for me is that the St Johnstone team matches up pretty perfectly to the Hearts defence. I think the way that the Hearts have played this season, they've really struggled with the ball in behind. They've really struggled to just defensively in general. But I think with the pace of Kim Pioka and Sidibe, it will be a real problem for them. But on the contrary to that, there has been games at Tynecastle. I mean, your best performances have come at Tynecastle this season, and you beat St Johnstone away from home. But I just think that with the negative aspects around the team and the way that you played last night, I mean, it is really a stretch to say that St Johnstone team would be able to at least get close to matching that the Petro Cup team, because Petro Cup are, I mean, we said that before, that they're not a very good side at all. And if St Johnstone were to play them, I'm not saying that St Johnstone would beat them, but I'm just saying that it'd be an interesting matchup. And the fact that Petro Cup were able to match Hearts at Tynecastle with 0 fans in the ground shows that St Johnstone have an opportunity to if they bring the atmosphere, which will probably be lacking from the Hearts end, if they can capitalise on that and win the game, then obviously that's a massive benefit for St Johnstone because it puts a bit of daylight between the bottom of the table and them. And for Hearts, it just goes down the way because with far from sold out stadium anyway, I think that with not many fans in the ground, if they were to lose on Sunday, it'd be an absolute nightmare because then where do you go from there? You've got a derby coming up, which to be fair, you'll probably beat us. But I mean, you've got a derby coming up, you've got very important games, and the fans are not on side. That's probably the worst situation you can be in. And if you were to lose to St Johnstone, I'd be interested to see how the Edinburgh derby goes in terms of support and atmosphere. If there's so much negativity around the club, does that all just go away for the game, or does that kind of carry over if you go a goal down or whatever it may be?
Hearts women would beat Hearts men right now. Generally, that is how bad we are. I mean, you said that Hearts will probably end up beating Hibs. I couldn't guarantee us beating anyone right now. I genuinely think you could take 11 folk off the locker room to play Hearts now and locker room would win. I mean, that's how bad it is. I mean, Hashbury Stumble says Hearts need a psychology coach. I think it needs more than that. I mean, I could do it quite easily. Pressure Drop says Kirk is a St Johnstone player not on loan. I know how this ends now. He'll score a hat-trick. Right, let's stop this depressing chat. Let's get predictions from both of you. I won't be offended, don't worry. Robbie, predictions, Hearts St Johnstone.
Hearts 1, St Johnstone 1.
Mikey?
I really want to say 1-0 St Johnstone, but I'll go 2-2.
Just say it.
No, I'll go 2-2.
Do you know what? I'm going to do something that I don't often do on this show. I'm not going to predict Hearts to win because I normally do. I'm trying to be positive. I'm going to go 2-1 St Johnstone. And I'm hoping for a bit of reverse psychology here. If I say we're going to get beat, we'll win. Probably won't work, but I'll try it anyway. Right, let's move on because I'm sick of talking about Hearts because we're rubbish. Let's move on to a game that's happening tonight. Friday night football on Premier Sports. Motherwell against Kilmarnock. Motherwell got a fantastic 4-3 victory against United, done United last week. Kilmarnock with 10 men, but they're used to that because it's been the 7th time they've had a man sent off. Beat a pathetic Hearts side by 1-0 last week. This is a interesting game, Mikey, because Motherwell are sitting 4th, Kilmarnock sitting 8th. There's been a lot of pressure on Stuart Kettlewell this season, which is crazy. But that was a big, big win for them last week to win 4-3 against a decent Dundee United side. It's a big game for them tonight.
Yeah, it is, and I think the whole thing with Stuart Kettlewell is a very weird one for me because he really dug them out of a deep hole last season, which shows that if things aren't going Motherwell's way, he's the perfect man to turn things around. And the sort of negativity that's around them, I don't understand that they're sitting 4th, which is the absolute limit for anyone outside of the top 3, which are very established this season. So they're doing basically all they can do. And yes, there's been a few poor performances lately, but I mean, you could genuinely back Motherwell to go and give everyone a game outside of maybe Celtic this season. So yeah, I think that it's going to be a very interesting game. I mean, I'd not be surprised if Kelly end up getting another man sent off. But I think it'll be one of those games where it's even towards the end of the game. It's probably level, and then there might be a late winner. I just have that sort of idea. I mean, Kelly, they've been very disappointing this season, from my perspective at least. But yeah, I still think that it'll be a very competitive game, especially considering the fact that everyone from 4th down to probably even 12th can give everyone a good game. It's very, very open this season. So yeah, that's the main takeaway I take from it. I think that Motherwell, they're doing as well as they can do, and I don't really understand the sort of anger from the fans at times.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie, you're looking at obviously Motherwell and Lennon Miller is obviously the topic of conversation, but I'm probably going to butcher this. The striker Stamatolopoulos got a couple of goals last week. I'm actually quite happy with that. I thought he looked decent for Motherwell, quite a physical presence, decent goal scorer. I think he's looked quite decent for Motherwell so far.
Yeah, I'm just going to call him Stam just to save myself butchering another times. But Motherwell, they look like a good team, and not to echo everything that Mikey said, but I found it really weird, some of the criticism that Kettlewell came under. To be in the position that Motherwell were, last season, and then to turn that around the way you did, it credits you having this type of season. I don't think Motherwell anytime this season has particularly been terrible. I think they've had definitely bad patches, but it seems like every club in this league has had bad patches at some point this season, bar obviously Celtic. I think they're looking good. I mean, obviously I got to watch them against us a couple of weeks ago. One thing Motherwell do that's very, very good is they know how to graft at results. That a good graft up team like Dundee United. Unfortunately, it didn't go their way against Motherwell, but teams like that, if you can graft at more results than you do losses, then you're going to be sitting high at the table, and they're sitting high up for a reason. It's no, I don't want to say it's only because they're grafting at results. They are a good team as well, and they know how to play some good football. So they're a very good team in terms of Kilmarnock. As Mikey said again, you cannot get a red card in this game. Actually, Derek McInnes might have no hair left if Kilmarnock somehow pull out another red card in this game, because it seems to be happening all the time. But listen, Kilmarnock has some good players as well. They know how to play football. McInnes is a very, very experienced manager in this league and knows how to graft as well. So I think, in terms of what Mikey said, I think this will maybe be a 1-goal sneak it right at the end. I feel like this will be a close battle, and I think one team might come out on top just in the last sort of 5-10 minutes.
Mikey, given Motherwell's season last season, we know the problems with Stuart Kettlewell, going 15 games without a win. There was a lot of pressure on him. I think if you ask most Motherwell fans at the start of the season, where do you think you'll finish? I don't think many Motherwell fans, including Stephen, if he's watching this, would have said that, come the end of the year, they'll be sitting 4th. It's been a very, very good season, and they can. I think they'll probably end up finishing top 6. They've had a very good season, and I think you've got to give massive credit to Motherwell, because we talk about Neil Critchley, we talk about managers under pressure. David Gray, for example, will come to him shortly. But Motherwell could have sacked him last season. They didn't. They stuck with him, and they were proved right because they're sitting 4th.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those where you would have expected him to be sacked, especially in the sort of modern age of football, and they've really been rewarded for sticking by him. I mean, the performances this season have not always been amazing. They've been sort of up and down patches, but on the whole, I think it's been a very, very successful start to the season for Motherwell. Obviously, getting to Hampden and then putting in. They could have obviously won at Hampden. They were the better side for spells of that game, and also in the league to have only had a few sort of minor slip-ups at this stage is very impressive. And I think that if they continue the way that they're going, have a good January, then there's nothing saying that they can't get European football this season. I mean, we saw the likes of St Mirren, Kilmarnock, who are not sort of particularly renowned for being in European football, do it in recent years. And obviously Motherwell have done it in recent years as well. So there's that opportunity for them. And yeah, with the way they're playing, I wouldn't put it past them to get European football this season. They just need to stick by the manager, and if things start to go a little bit negative for them, then just to stick by him again, because it worked so well last time. And yeah, to be in the situation they're in at this stage, I think any Motherwell fan would have taken it at the start of the season.
Rob, in terms of Kilmarnock, I mean, we mentioned it there. That's now 7 red cards they've had this season, which is absolutely crazy. It was a good win for them last week against Hearts. They managed to defend well, had a few other chances. But as Mikey said, it's not been a great season for them. They are sitting 8th. They're not actually that far off Hearts, to be fair. But, I mean, where do you think it's gone wrong for Kilmarnock this season? I know that kind of start of the season they had European football, and I kind of said that when they got knocked to Europe, they would improve. They haven't really done that, though. They've been a bit up and down this season. Do you think last week should be a catalyst for them? But where do you think it's gone wrong for them this season?
Yeah, I mean, for last week, again, grasping a result like that against, Hearts are struggling, but if you actually look at the way the game went, I thought Hearts actually dominated a lot of the ball for us. So for Kilmarnock to pick up a result in that game was huge for them. I think it will kickstart the season. I don't actually expect a red card in this game, although you just never know. I think McInnes will make it very clear to the players this needs to stop, because it is really bad how many red cards they're picking up, and I just wonder how the training sessions are going and what McInnes is saying to these players before the games, because it seems to be happening all the time. Like McInnes, if you're frustrated listening to it and seeing it, you've got to be wondering what McInnes is thinking, because as a manager, seeing your team get that many red cards must be horrendous. But Kilmarnock, they're sort of dipped off after being put out of Europe. But again, if you look at a league, I mean, one result, a couple of good results here could move them right back up into the top 6, and then you're speaking again about them potentially getting into Europe. So the league's so close. I just don't think they've been good enough, but they've got a chance here to go on a little bit of a run and try and create some form. It'll be interesting to see how they get on. I know after years they play Aberdeen, and then they've got Hibs, so that's another 2 big games. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on, but I don't want to buy entirely into, the red card series every, couple of games this season are been bad, but it certainly has an effect on your team, because they're missing so many players a lot of the time because of these red cards. And again, they'll be missing, is it Diaz that gets sent off? They'll be missing him again for the weekend. So if you're Derek McInnes, I don't think you'll buy entirely into this red card stuff, but it definitely does have a poor effect on the team.
Mikey, it must be so frustrating for a manager, because you spend all week building up to a game. You've got your game plan, you've got your system, and then obviously last week they did win the game, but within 6 minutes you've got a man sent off. Now they're getting used to playing with 10 men, because like I said, 7 players sent off this season, which is crazy. But it must be driving Derek McInnes crazy that there's not a lot you can do about it. You can't do anything about a player diving in like Robbie Dees did last week. But surely at some point you've got to say this has to stop, because we cannot keep going down to 10 men every single week.
Exactly, and it's such a weird one, because last season we didn't see any of that from Kelly. I think they had a relatively clean disciplinary record last season. I don't think they certainly weren't renowned for their red cards last season. But you just look this season, especially at the likes of Joe Wright, who I think's got maybe 2 or 3 red cards now. and the really poor discipline from the likes of Liam Donnelly for his red card up at Ross County. These are not just sort of off the cuff decisions that you can say, oh, he's just mistimed it, it's a bad challenge. These are just sort of serious, either ridiculous things that they're doing, like for example kicking the ball away, completely needless red cards to pick up, or they're really bad, almost malicious looking challenges like the one from Robbie Dees on Sunday. Now I'm not saying that there's any malice behind it, but I am just saying that it seems as though they're going in with extra force for no real reason. And I mean, to go down 10 men that early on against what was a relegation rival at the time, yes, they went on and won, but had they gone on and lost that game, I mean, I don't even want to know what Derek McInnes would have said, because it's such a needless decision to make. And they've done it way too often this season. So, I mean, we've seen it before with Kelly. They've had really good seasons before. For example, the 2018-19 season. The next season, they really did drop off and they finished, I think, 8th in the end. So, Kelly aren't, let's be honest, Kelly aren't a renowned European club. They don't finish in Europe very often. But for them to have kind of dropped off this rapidly with the sort of self-implosion they've put themselves under is a really weird one to look at. And I mean, it wouldn't surprise me for them to be sort of top half in a few weeks because the league is that open. But the way that things look at the moment, it's obviously not on the best path. But that result against Hearts at the weekend should be one that they can take some confidence off, because they went down to 10 men and still won the game. So it should be a sort of hint of confidence for them.
It's funny to look at the on SPFL's website, and I was looking at fouls conceded. The fouls that teams have gave away. Kelly actually sits second bottom. The only team that's given away less fouls is Celtic this season, which is astounding when you look at how many red cards Kelly are getting. To be sitting in an 11th, it's funny to see. We're not going to talk about who's in number one because it might be us, but it was interesting to read that they've only gave away 167.
I don't know if you watched I think everyone's probably heard it now, but I listened to that VAR review show yesterday where Gordon Duncan and Willie Collum, and they actually gave you the VAR audio for the Kilmarnock Hearts game last week. This is where I think the show is very good, and I've said it before, the transparency, because you actually heard in the audio, the referee at the time said that he thought the defender had slipped when he made the challenge on Vargas. The VARs looked at it, said, no, it's over the ankle, it's a late challenge. That is where VAR is actually really good use, because the people in the VAR team have seen it's a dangerous challenge, it's reckless. He's not meant to do Vargas, of course he's not. But the referee sees something completely different to what the VAR has seen, Robbie. The VAR's called him across and said, you need to look at this. This is what we've seen. And they've agreed with it. That is where VAR does work, because it's been clear. It's been pretty obvious. I think the audio was very good. And this is where I keep going back to the fact we've talked about VAR before, but this is where I like the transparency of this new show, because you can, maybe not all of them, but you heard the audio, and that's where it does work, because last week was a prime example of that working perfectly.
Yeah, that is where VAR's very positive, and I think to end the referee, you just need to go and look at that to see the positives and see how it actually works. And as we're going to speak about later, when we get to Rangers and Celtic and stuff, there's also a prime example of how VAR doesn't work well in this game. So it was interesting to see sort of both sides there early weekend. But no, I thought that's one of the instances where the VAR team worked perfectly. Referee sees something different, it gets called over, and then reversed and stuff. So I think that's as an example where VAR works perfectly. And we'll go into talk about VAR in a bit, because there's still huge fallout for the cup final on Sunday. So it'll be interesting.
There certainly is. Prediction for this one, Mikey. Start with you. Motherwell, Kilmarnock.
I'll go 2-1 Motherwell.
Robbie?
I'll go 1-0 Motherwell.
I'm going to go 2-1 Motherwell as well, I think. We are just about an hour and 5 minutes to go. Like I said, it's our last show of the year, so get your comments in. Let's go to Pittodrie. Aberdeen against Hibs tomorrow. 3 o'clock kickoff. Aberdeen with no wins in 5. Currently still sitting second though. Hibs with a victory last week against Ross County by 3-1. Far better second half. We may as well come to Mikey with this one first. Mikey, how are you feeling about tomorrow? Is there a bit more positivity following that result last week and the fact that Aberdeen have not been brilliant recently?
I'd say, yeah. I think that things around Hibs, from my perspective at least, have been a lot more positive recently. And the main thing for me is that we have had a few of them games against Ross County before, like performances that matched our performance against Ross County, and we haven't won. The most important thing for a team is if you don't play well, if you can still get results when not playing well, that's a sign of a decent team. We matched Aberdeen at the end of November and arguably should have won with the chances we had. And I think Aberdeen, they're sort of out of sorts at the moment. They're not doing as well as they were. I think going up there, if the game goes ahead, because I've heard there's been some rumours that it might not go ahead, but I think that if Hibs go for it and Hibs put in a good performance, even if we don't win, even if we get a draw or if we lose by the odd goal, then we'll still have that sort of positive feeling going into the derby, which I don't even think. I think that if Hearts win and we lose, we'll still be the more sort of confident, even though you will be above us in the table, because things have been a sort of steady increase for Hibs at the moment, where Hearts have been very erratic and mostly negative. I think even when Hibs have lost recently against Celtic, we were actually pretty good. And the first half against Ross County was very poor. It was quite unacceptable. But the fact that we rallied, got in at halftime, 1-1, and then won the game in the second half shows that there is something building there. And for David Gray, I think that he's eased a lot of the pressure off of him. And yeah, I think ever since that Dundee game, we've had a bit of a reality check, and things are looking a lot better than they were a few weeks ago. So if we can go up there and make a good account of ourselves, I'll be happy regardless of if we win or if we drop points.
Paul Donaldson says the 2-week break came at the right time for Aberdeen. We've been awful in the past month, with the exception of the Celtic game at home. Obviously, it's difficult to know, Robbie, but I mean, how much would that 6-0 hammering by Celtic in that cup have affected Aberdeen's confidence? Because I think going into that game, everybody, I certainly did, going into that game thinking Aberdeen are going to have this will be a really tough test for Celtic, and Celtic has blown them away. How much of a confidence factor would that be?
Yeah, I mean, it can be huge to the confidence, I think the one thing Fearon had to make sure was after that, he didn't start losing more games and really drop form, but it has sort of dropped off form, no wins in the last 5, obviously losing to us as well, so the confidence, it seems to have dropped a bit, but if you're an Aberdeen fan, you've got to be looking at this, and Graeme, I think I said it to you before the show, and Mikey, not to bust your bubble too much, but Aberdeen have only lost 2 games at home this calendar year, so if you're looking at this fixture, you've got to be looking and going, this is a chance for us to get back on track, because they have 2 away games to Kilmarnock and Dundee United after this, so they'll want to try and get the win at home here, but it'll be a tough test for them. Hibs managed, as Mikey said, to graft out the win against Ross County. I thought, it was definitely based on the second half. I thought Hibs deserved it. But Mikey, I wanted to ask you about obviously Dwight Gale, and he's been a player that obviously scored against Ross County. How influential do you think he's going to be going forward? Because you need to try and get him out of full fitness. Do you think when he's at full fitness and he can play majority of a game, how big do you think he'll be?
Well, he hasn't been amazing so far. I think that he's had his moments, but over the course he's looked quite lethargic sometimes. His age has sort of shown at times, but I think that if we can get even like a tenth of the player he was a few years ago, then we'll get some goals out of him. And it's a good opportunity for him to try and get some games in, because Kukurevich has been far from ideal this season. He's been probably one of the lowest level performers I've seen in recent weeks. So I think for Dwight Gale, it's a real opportunity for him to sort of stamp his authority on the starting 11. And if we can get anything sort of resembling a striker out of him, then it'll be good, because a lot of the criticism for Hibs at the moment is that we don't have that lethal striker that's going to kill a game off. We've got individual players who can do decent things, like the likes of Junior Hoyle, Ellie Johan, but there's nobody there that's going to score 10, 15, 20 goals a season that the likes of Lawrence Shankland or Kevin Nisbet did in the past. So I think if we can start to get some goals out of him, then we can really mount a challenge towards that top half and even go for European football, which is mental to think after the start we had. But there's a sort of almost a bit of a feel-good factor around Hibs at the moment, even though we're not exactly doing amazing on paper. It's just that sort of feelings of us improving is kind of there, which is a massive thing. And if we can get Dwight Gale firing at any sort of decent rate, then it'll massively help us. So yeah, I think Dwight Gale can be very influential, but he hasn't been so far.
All the best to you as well, Hashbury, when it comes, mate. Paul, it's very worrying times for Aberdeen just now. We have 4 long-term injuries now. Vicente Bezzayun out for 3 months and Jack Milne out for 4 months. Aberdeen should have won the game at Easter Road. Lack of concentration at the end of the match and conceding that late goal was absolutely criminal. The one thing I would say as well, Robbie, I was on another podcast a few weeks ago, and one Aberdeen fan that was on it was talking about Leighton Clarkson. Now, I've always said that I'm a big fan of Clarkson, seen him a few times, but his form has really dropped off recently. Aberdeen need him back in form because he has that bit of a spark. He's got ability, he's got creativity, but I don't think he's been anywhere near the level that I thought he would be this season.
No, and I just wonder if that's maybe because some of the players he's now got in him. You know, you look at the likes of McGrath, Morris, you've got Nisbet in front of him, you've got Shinnie, and I think it's Nelson that plays in behind him. I've played against St Johnston. They've definitely got, you know, they have improved a lot since last season, you know, and are definitely under the circumstances that Aberdeen were at last season under Warnock, you know, it wasn't really hard for the player like Clarkson to stand out. I just wonder if now that the rest of the team seems to be, well, they were playing well, that he maybe has dropped off a bit because he's maybe not standing out as much. But there's no doubt he's still an influential player to Aberdeen. He can be. He's got a lot of quality about him. So I think if you're Clarkson, I think his form will come back to the standard that it once was. But again, is that maybe just because everybody had him is getting a bit better?
I'll come on to Hibs in a minute, Mikey, but I think one player that definitely has looked a lot better recently for Aberdeen is Duke. We all know the issues that we had at the start of the season. He didn't get his move. He kind of went in a sulk, but he's a physical presence. He's quick. I've seen it a few times in the start. He's a very, very good player. He could cause Hibs a lot of problems tomorrow.
Yeah, I think he will, and there's there is that concern there that Aberdeen have got very good individual talent and they've also got a very good team there. Now, that hasn't shown recently, but I think the likes of Duke and the special shade Morris, those are players that I'm very worried about, especially considering our full-backs haven't been the best defensively this season. I mean, I love Nicky Cadden, but he's not really a full-back by trade. He's more of a wing-back, and we've not really seen the best of him defensively. He's been very good going forward. And then obviously on the other side, we've got Miller, who I believe is still out, and Chris Cadden, who is quite far past his best. So Aberdeen can really hurt us out wide. But I think the fact that we've moved to that back five or the back three, however you want to look at it, I think that's really sort of shored up our defence, having that extra man back there. So I think there will be a few threats from out wide, but I think that if we play the best that we can, even if Duke has a good sort of game against Cadden, we can kind of sweep that up with the likes of O'Hara and even Rocky Bashiri and somebody like that, Iredale as well. I think we've got a decent defence as long as we don't constantly get beat by the Aberdeen wingers, which is my main concern.
Paul says, there's an Aberdeen podcast I listen to who've been discussing how Clarkson and McGrath are good players but don't work well together. Sometimes you get that, Robbie. You know, you've got really good players but they just maybe don't play as good together. But I actually think that as well, you know, I think if you look at Aberdeen overall this season, they've had a very good season. They are sitting second still. I know it's no wins in 5, but it has been 3 draws in there. But I think one of the shining lights this season has definitely been the form of Jamie McGrath.
Yeah, I feel like I've banged on about it almost every show about how good McGrath is. Also, I knew how good and how talented he could be when he was with us for the couple of years. He is a very, very talented player. And it was almost a shame now to hear Paul say that about, you know, McGrath and Clarkson all working together, because if you look at the two names on paper, you think, wow, that is a dangerous combination in the midfield. But you know, they still could click at some point. I think they're both very good players in their own right, but if you imagine a Aberdeen midfield where they are both working together really well, that is a dangerous midfield. In terms of Aberdeen, where they're sitting, do I think they'll finish second at the end of the season? Probably not. I think it'll be Rangers to take second now, but Aberdeen, I think, will be comfortable in third, because I think Mikey said it earlier that, you know, fourth downwards can really give each other good competition. So I expect, you know, that sort of top 3 to be what you'd expect, and everybody else after that scrambling. I think Aberdeen will turn around the form eventually and just sort of drift into third, almost like Hearts did last season, you know, how comfortable they were in third. I think it'll sort of be the same thing for Aberdeen.
Mikey, I mean, I watched obviously the highlights last week, and I said this to you as well previously, that I thought first half last week Hibs were fortunate. I think Ross County could have been out of the game by half time, but Hibs turned it round, got the win. You mentioned Kucherevic. Now, that game against Celtic Park, he's got 2 big chances, doesn't take them. obviously not just him, but if Hibs get chances tomorrow, they will get chances. If they get chances, they've got to take them. But there has been improvement from Hibs. They do look a bit better now. I know they're still in a difficult position, and there's a January window to come. Has the pressure slightly lifted off David Gray?
I'd say yeah, because we've seen the good performances from the team, and we've seen the reaction that we can get from David Gray from the performance from Dundee to the Aberdeen game. And I think that going into January, David Gray has another transfer window to try and bring in some players. Now, we're very fortunate, similar to Hearts, that we have more money than the teams we're fighting with, the likes of Ross County, St Johnstone at the moment. And we have probably the fourth, fifth biggest budget in the Premiership at the moment. So we have the luxury of being able to spend money in January. And for me, the main thing is that if David Gray can have a good January window and can bring in the players he wants, we've still got half a season where we're right in this battle between even the likes of 4th and 12th. So we can try and maximise that, and a 4th place finish from where we started would be absolutely excellent. Now, I'm not saying we're going to finish 4th, but I'm just saying that if we get into a situation where we have a good January window and performances are looking good, then even a top half finish would be satisfactory at this stage. So I think the pressure has definitely lifted on David Gray. I said this before when we were in poor form, this is more of a transitional season because we've got a lot of players out of contract at the end of the season. The board's clearly wanting David Gray to be a long-term sort of thing, which is why we haven't got rid of him and which is why we're kind of sticking with him. And for this season, it was very much just a bit of a stopgap between the current players we've got leaving and us kind of trying to push on beyond that. We're kind of trying to just get through it. So if we can try and maximise this season to a decent level and finish top half, then I think the pressure very much lifts. And I think the fans definitely understand that David Gray the aim is to keep him here for a long time. And the board, although there's been several unmistakable errors from the board, I think trying to go with that long-term option is a very positive thing. And I think the fans are getting behind that. And I think the performances have really warranted a bit of the positivity around Hibs at the moment. As you said, even though we're sitting down at the bottom, there is a bit more of a feel-good factor than the likes of Hearts, who are obviously only a couple of points behind us. But we looking in infinitely better sort of mental position from the state of the club at the moment.
Paul says, I'm hoping that Keskinen and Shaden Morris comes off the bench tomorrow. To be fair, Shaden Morris actually looked quite decent when I've seen him recently. But just in terms of recruitment, Mikey, I mean, I could say how many players I think Hearts needs. I think we need a whole squad. But how many players realistically do you think Hibs need, and what positions definitely need strengthening?
We need a striker, but I think Kieran Bowie, when he comes back, will sort that issue. We need midfield. We need midfielders because we've not got enough attacking outlet from there. We've got Josh Campbell, who, as much as I love him, as much as he's a Hibs guy, he's not that level that we really need to kind of push up the table. A player like a Luke McCowan would have been ideal had he not gone to Celtic and went to us instead. The likes of a Lyle Cameron, someone like that, maybe not him, but someone around that threshold would be ideal. And just, I would say defence as well, because Ekpiteta's out with a sort of longer term injury, and Rocky Bashiri, although he's been good lately, we know he's not a very reliable player, and probably a fullback as well. And I mean, the obvious one is definitely a goalkeeper. So there's a lot of areas that need strengthened. Now we won't get them all in one window, but I think if we can get a couple of them in, we can start strengthening. But the main thing for me is a striker and a goalkeeper, because we need goals. I mean, we need to stop having poor goals conceded. Now, Jordan Smith has been very good at shot stopping, but his distribution and handling is really poor. So there's elements there, and I mean, Joseph Bursick has obviously not been very good either. So we need to get a goalkeeper in pretty urgently, and I'd say that we also need to get a striker in, because goal scoring is another one where I said it earlier, but Dwight Gale and Kukurea that aren't exactly very clinical strikers this season.
Right, predictions for Aberdeen Hibs. Let's start with Mikey.
I'll go optimistic and go 1-1.
Robbie?
I'm going to go Hibs 2-1.
6-0 Aberdeen. No, I'm clearly joking. I'm clearly joking. I'm going to go 2-1 Aberdeen. I think Aberdeen at home probably will win it, but it'll be difficult. We've got about 3 games to go. Let's start at Ibrox, and we may as well get this out of the way now, Robbie. Rangers against Dundee United, but we'll get the VAR stuff out the way first, because throughout the whole week it has been controversial after the game last week. We weren't on last week because I was at Tynecastle, but the penalty incident that Rangers should have had, it's been a massive topic of conversation. Willie Collum has come out yesterday and said that the VAR got it wrong. They let John Beaton down. It should have been a penalty. It has dragged on, and I spoke about this when we came on air. What was your take of the incident last week and the fact that still a week later it's still being talked about?
Well, put it this way, I've not been listening to Super Scoreboard this week because it's practically impossible with the amount of Rangers fans that are going on. But first and foremost, before I even get into the fans, it is a penalty for me. I can't believe how wrong VAR got that. I can't believe how wrong the referee got that. That is one of the examples, Graeme, I always spoke about, the positive use of VAR. That's where it was very negative and used in the wrong situation. I cannot believe Rangers never got a penalty for that. But just to get into the Rangers, fans and everything else, the reaction for the Rangers fans for me has been really embarrassing. Rangers scored 3 goals into Celtic. I actually couldn't tell you the last time they done that. They absolutely dominated the game, even with the penalties, and they still couldn't win. Now, to any Rangers fans, I've seen ones saying null and void the game, replay the game, we should get a title, this and that. Throw it in the bin, like, seriously, grow up. If that went the other way and you had won the game, you wouldn't even be complaining about it. It would be so out of the picture. But I just think Rangers fans need to grow up. It's really embarrassing that this long after a cup final, I know you lost it and you've got every right to be angry, but to seriously say null and void the game and give Rangers a title and all that, just honestly grow up. Rangers fans are the worst of the worst, man. I hate them.
Say what you think, Rob. Honest, mate.
Yeah, I know.
Oh no, I think that even even with VAR getting it wrong, the fact you can score 3 goals against Celtic in any game and not come out victorious, that's embarrassing in itself.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey, it's funny because yes, it was a penalty. Of course, it was a penalty. We all know it was a penalty. But if I'm a Rangers fan, my anger is with the fact that you had a 4-on-1 and you did not take your chance. If you score that, you probably won the game. But their focus on the penalty. Of course, it was a wrong decision. I said it earlier on. The fact that this is where VAR doesn't work. You heard the VAR audio. Willie Collum was furious with his officials yesterday. You can't blame John Beaton. It's not his fault. But they got it wrong. It was a poor decision. But all week, all I've heard, and Robbie's right, I've heard it as well, Rangers fans saying the game should be replayed. There's been so many bad decisions against Rangers. You just have to get on with it and just accept the fact that, yes, it was a poor decision, but you had other chances in that game to win it and you're not taking it. It's not just on that one decision. And the thing is, you might have missed a penalty. Now, it's Tavernier, you might not have missed it, but you might have missed it. It didn't make a massive difference, I don't think. But the fact is, a week later, we're only talking about it because it's been the subject of conversation all week. But let it go. You just have to accept it and move on. But some Rangers fans, like Robbie said, just can't do that.
Yeah, well, funnily enough, we should probably then replay the Scottish Cup quarter-final between Hibs and Rangers last season. Or the game between Rangers and St Mirren a few months ago when Olasani was blatantly taken down. Or the countless decisions that have gone in the Old Firm's favour this season. And I'm not going to go ahead and make any of these ludicrous shouts that people have made. But I can see the frustration. But at the same point, I mean, there's been plenty of times where Rangers have sort of benefited off of poor refereeing decisions. And for them to be coming out and crying corruption and all this nonsense, it is ridiculous from that standpoint. And I think that the way that things are just going at the moment, Rangers had everything in their favour on Sunday. The penalties were in front of their own fans, so there wasn't that element of distraction to it. Celtic had that. They had to deal with that. Rangers were at their best, Celtic were far from their best, and they still didn't win. And yes, of course, it's a penalty. It's a terrible decision to not give it. And in that sense, you can say Rangers have every right to be annoyed, but for them to be coming out and claiming all this rubbish about Celtic and referees and everything, it's unbelievable. And I think that if you were just to go back and look at a lot of games that Rangers have been involved in recent months and years, then there's a lot that can be said the other way round, and Rangers have every right to be disappointed, as I said. but there's plenty of times where Rangers have benefited from poor refereeing decisions. So for all that to be going on with a section of the Rangers support, now not all of them, but from a section of the Rangers support is very embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, Paul says this whole reaction to this has been embarrassing. What about the penalty Aberdeen didn't get in last year's final? We didn't have the media going on about it on that one. Hashbury says, well, we can agree with a penalty. If it was not the Old Firm team, it would not be a talking point. Paul says, if they want the 2024 League Cup final voided in 2023, one needs to be voided too. And he also said, bad decisions against that lot. They are the club who benefited most from poor referee decisions year after year after year. This is a thing, Rob. It's the Goldfish Bowl of Glasgow. Now, I'm not calling out every Celtic Rangers fan because it's not all of them. But, you know, you're hearing people say the game should be replayed, it should be null and void, like you said. Every fan of every club, St Mirren, Hearts, Hibs, we can all go back to decisions that we've had not given against Celtic or Rangers. You don't hear us talking about replaying games. But because it's Celtic and Rangers, because it's a massive final, that's what gets talked about. And every social media site, every radio station, and we're only doing it now because of the VAR order that came out yesterday, which is why I'm talking about it. But you wouldn't get this reaction if it was anybody else. It is ridiculous. But it's the world we live in, where you've got two teams that dominate Scottish football for so long. It's all about them. Like Paul says, and like you guys have said there, if this was anybody else, it wouldn't get the media attention it's got.
Yeah, Rangers have created, as well, some of the fans, sorry, not all of the fans, I will say that. It's not every fan that's, going on claiming the game should be null and void and whatever. But a lot of the Rangers supporters seem to have created this narrative that bad decisions only go against them, when, as Mikey's mentioned, as you said, there's countless decisions gone against every other club. Look, we can all come here and say that the officiating in this country is no good enough. We've known that for a long, long time, and decisions are just going to go against your team. But whether it's Rangers, St Mirren, Montrose, Alloa, you just need to get on with it because it's going to happen every week. And to me, it's interesting that we can be a week after this cup final and Rangers fans are more interested in this VAR decision than their own striker not taking a penalty, because I don't know about you guys, but I cannot believe Cyril Dessers never had a penalty in that final. That is your striker. He's got to be confident in front of his own fans to put that away, and he's not even stepped up for them.
To be fair, our colleague Josh, that sometimes comes on here as well, he was very angry about that. Now, I personally think it's cowardice. When you've got a goalkeeper, good penalty by the way, and you've got a left back taking a penalty before your striker, I think that's cowardly for me. If I'm a striker, I'm putting my hand up and saying I want to take one. I think that is generally really poor from Cyril Dessers. And I've actually seen quite a few Rangers fans as well saying it's a disgrace, they want him gone. I'm not a Rangers fan, but I get where they're coming from, Mikey, because like I said, if you're a striker, you should be the first person to put the hand up. When you've got a goalkeeper and a left back taking a penalty before you, I think that's shocking, personally.
Now, the one thing I will say in defence of the goalkeeper one is that goalkeepers practice penalties all the time. They practice saving them. So, in theory, they're the ones that will know the best places to put a penalty, which are the least savable ones. But Rangers went up to those penalties, and I said it on Sunday, that I think there was two players that looked relatively confident going up to take the penalty, Tavernier and Danilo. After that, nobody did. I mean, I think it was actually Hadji who looked relatively calm going up to his penalty. Danilo looked quite nervous as well. So, I mean, when you're, as you said, if you let a goalkeeper in, especially Ridvan Yilmaz, who one is a fullback, but two looked like he'd rather be anywhere else but taking the penalty. I mean, that is embarrassing, and the fact that Cyril Dessers as well always came under so much criticism from Rangers fans for missing opportunities. He had the perfect opportunity to redeem himself. If he scores the penalty and Rangers go on to win, then all is seemingly forgiven. But the fact that he's almost needlessly put all this pressure onto himself by not taking the penalty, that's it's embarrassing. But the one thing I will say to his defence is that, unfortunately, and it's the same with Celtic and it's the same with some other clubs as well, the players get, I mean, we've seen it with a bit with Yilmaz, the amount of stick that they come under for missing a penalty. If Dessers misses that penalty, then I'm not saying all the Rangers fans, but a decent-sized group of them would completely get on his back and try and hound him out anyway. So that's probably playing on his mind, the fact that there's been so much criticism rightfully so at times from Rangers fans because he hasn't been good enough. But I'd say that some of the actions or the sort of reaction towards him this season from Rangers fans has probably been playing on his mind quite a lot, because everything that he does at the moment will get criticised. Like, for example, the one against Tottenham, where it was a brilliant save by Forster, and he was getting a lot of blame for not scoring that, which, yeah, he could probably do better, but it's a really good save. So I think that when he's getting scrutinised to the level he is from some of the Rangers fans, you can see why he's nervous. But, I mean, it goes back to the initial point. If you're letting someone who looks like he'd rather not be in the stadium than take a penalty ahead of you, I mean, that is very, very poor. So, yeah, I can see why he didn't take one, but at the same time, it's very, 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 very poor from him to not step up.
Hashbury Stumble says, got to go, see you in 2025. Have a good one, Hashbury. Have a good Christmas and New Year, pal. I mean, Robbie, just looking at the game tomorrow, Rangers against United. Now, Rangers have already lost to United this season. United go there currently sitting fifth. They've got a striker in banging form, Sam Dalby, 8 goals this season. How much of a blow will last week have been to Rangers? Because they had been better. You know, they had beaten Ross County, they had beaten Kilmarnock. They actually played all right last week. But how much of a confidence blow is that going to be to have lost that game last week going at this game tomorrow?
Graeme, I think you might get mixed up. Is it no Dundee Rangers office and no Dundee United?
Fucking Dundee.
Aye. It's all right, these things happen.
It's a Dundee club, it's the same thing.
Aye, pretty much. They're only, 20 feet away from each other, the two stadiums. That's not that far. Aye, no, I think for Dundee, I don't think Rangers' heads will drop that much to where Dundee will pick it up for this game. I can only really see a Rangers win, to be honest. I think if you're a Rangers fan, you need to look more at the positives of the last couple of games. I mean, you know, the sort of system switch that Clement has implemented seems to have worked. I did see news today that Igaman, I think that's how you say it, Igamani, one of the two, is being linked with Everton, Bournemouth, a lot of Premier League clubs and a lot of European clubs as well for a move away. I think Rangers fans will really want to hang on to him because he's been really good the last few games. But if you're Rangers, I think you've just got to keep the head up, because although you lost the game, there was real positive signs against Celtic. Again, they dominated the game. I thought they had the much better chances. I thought the 4-1, for example, they scored that, they probably win. But it's looking more positive than it was for Rangers. It almost feels like, I remember Mikey was saying earlier with Hibs, the sort of positive atmosphere that's gone around. Although Rangers lost and there is a lot of negativity, there's also a lot of positivity, and the sort of way they're playing now, it sort of looks like Clement's no one bad result away for the sack. It looks like, he's very much got the trust of some of the Rangers fans back. So I fully expect Rangers will win this game. If you're Dundee, you just want to go and try and frustrate them. It's one of the classics where you're going to go and you're going to sit behind the ball and try and frustrate Rangers for the game, try and pick something up. But honestly, I can only really see Rangers getting a win in this game.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey, for Dundee this time, not United. I mean, they're currently sitting 7th. I think I said they came to Tynecastle 3 weeks ago and I thought they looked really poor, but they have had a decent enough season. And I think Robbie's actually quite right there. Is it a case of Dundee will go there tomorrow, try and kind of frustrate that Rangers crowd and try and keep themselves in the game for as long as they can?
Yeah, I suppose so. Dundee have had a bit of a nothing season so far, and that's weird considering they're sitting 7th, which any Dundee fan would have taken last season. So, I mean, yeah, it's been a sort of a bit of an on and off season. They've obviously had their very good games, the likes of Hibs at home, and obviously they've had the bad games as well, like losing 2-0 away at Hearts. So it's been very sort of on and off, and they're very inconsistent. But I mean, I'd struggle to see them getting anything tomorrow. I think the Rangers will win quite, I guess, comfortably. But I will say that I think that Dundee are in a bit of a situation where they'll be very happy with being a mid-table team at the moment, because they've finally sort of broken that duck of being the yo-yo club, as it were, over recent years, and it'll be a massive positive for them if they can sort of again survive and get up towards that top half. And as I said earlier, that it's very open. They could finish anywhere from 4th to bottom this season. So I mean, yeah, with Dundee, I think it'll be one of them where they just try and frustrate. But if I'm being honest, I can't really see them getting anything out of it.
I know. So just to say, I know Tony Docherty was saying in the press that 80s players picked up a sickness bug. I think he said everyone's supposed to be back, but I'm not sure if there'll be any players missing, so that could potentially be a factor as well.
Possibly. I mean, Paul says they'll win tomorrow because they'll get a dodgy penalty make up for the one they didn't get in the final. Good evening, Gregor, our Dundee fan. Hope you're well, mate. You'll be looking forward to tomorrow, I suppose. But I mean, the one player that I was kind of surprised they didn't start against Hearts a few weeks ago, Robbie, was Simon Murray. He is that kind of, he's a pest. He causes defenders problems. He gets in their faces. He's a really, he doesn't stop. And I suppose that's what Dundee need tomorrow. They need somebody that's going to be a pest tomorrow. And if he starts, which he probably should do, he could cause that Rangers defence a lot of problems tomorrow.
Yeah, especially if I think if Robin Proper starts the game. I know when we played them a month or so ago back at Ibrox, all Lasagna was that pest that, sort of drove dropping and saying at points in the match. I suspect they'll sort of go different in terms of, the player that Simon Murray is, but he is as much of a pest. He'll cause Rangers defence a lot of problems. He'll just be a pain to defend against, and they probably should start with him. I'd be surprised if they didn't. I think if you're Dundee, you've got to rely on somebody like him when you go to Ibrox, especially because, let's be honest, Dundee aren't going to get much time up the park. It's what they can do when they are up there. And if you can get the ball over to Simon Murray, then it can cause teams problems. So you sort of suspect that Dundee will rely on that for this game, and you'll probably see quite a lot of long balls after Dundee try to find him.
Mike, I mean, for any club going to Ibrox, apart from Celtic, who normally dominate anyway, how important will it be for Dundee tomorrow that if and when they do get the ball, that they use it properly?
I mean, it'll be crucial because I can't see them having a massive amount of the ball. I think that they need to try and, I mean, the main thing is if they get a chance, they take it. I think that it's all well and good if you can do decent things with the ball at your feet, but if you can actually go ahead and get that goal and really frustrate the Ibrox crowd, then that'll be the most important thing for them. And yeah, I mean, Simon Murray is probably the player that you're looking at that will do that. So it's very crucial that they try and, if they do get a chance, they take it. And if they're able to frustrate that Ibrox crowd, it doesn't take a massive amount to be that sort of frustration to them. And I mean, it's not out of the realms of possibility that Dundee come away from Ibrox with a point or even three. But I just think that if Rangers get the early goal, it could be a long sort of afternoon for them. But at the same time, on the sort of other hand, if Dundee go and get the early goal, then they can very much frustrate Rangers, and we've seen that a few times this season. So the game can really be sort of decided within the opening 15-20 minutes, depending on how the game really starts.
Robbie, it wasn't that long ago that a lot of folk were wondering who this Hamza Igamani is, and you've now just mentioned the clubs that he's been linked with. It shows how well that he's done recently, and as much as Rangers have been pretty poor, he has definitely been a shining light for them this season.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's, he's really come onto a game with this new systems, which I think, Clermont had to change something because, let's be honest, it wasn't working. If they kept going the way they were going, I don't even think Clermont would be in the door right now. It was sort of forced into the change. It seems to have worked, Agaman and Danilo, I think it was they two playing up front. The game before the Tottenham game, I think it was County. It seemed to work. They seemed to link up well together. I think when you've got Hadji on the pitch, he's a deadly creator in the middle of the park as well. So Rangers, they have a few danger men, but again, Igaman, how long will Rangers be able to hold on to him with, some of the big Premier League teams that are interested in him? I'm not sure, but as long as they can hold on to him for the long time, I think he'll be all right. I think he'll do well. He definitely knows how to score a goal. So he's a very, very good player.
I mean, Mikey, it probably is between Aberdeen and Rangers for that second place because Celtic are going to win the league quite comfortably, I think. How big a window, we talk about January windows, how big a window could January be for Philip Clement?
I mean, it can be massive because they can spend maybe not as much as they could in the past, but the weird thing is that even when Rangers are in a bit of a negative situation financially, they can still spend more than any of the other clubs outside of Celtic. So they have got the advantage in that sense, and if they can bring in the right sort of players that they... I mean, obviously last season there wasn't really the impact that they wanted from January because obviously they lost the league at the end with the likes of Fabio Silva, who didn't really perform. I mean, Diamonde, who came in, was actually pretty good and has kind of performed. So if they can bring in the right players, then they can probably secure second. But I think winning the league is pretty far gone, and I think even Rangers fans know that at this stage. So they need to try and have a good January, and I guess try and get at least the Scottish Cup trophy home with them. So if they can have a decent January, then they'll probably wrap up second quite comfortably. But then again, we have seen the Rangers recruitment over the last few years hasn't been exactly flawless. There's been a lot of errors there. So unless they have a sort of very successful window, then Aberdeen are very much still right with them with that sort of chance to get second. And we've seen with Aberdeen their summer window was actually pretty good. Well, it has been really good, and they've really benefited off that. So it can really go either way for Rangers. But I think January's going to be very influential.
Prediction time for tomorrow, Robbie. Rangers against Dundee.
I'll go 3-0 Rangers.
Mikey?
I'll go 2-0 Rangers.
Yeah, I'm going 3-0 with Robbie as well. I think it'll be 3-0. Sorry, Gregor. Let's move on to another game that's happening tomorrow. Robbie's St Mirren team are away to Ross County, to Dingwall. Ross Kent obviously with a 3-1 defeat to Hibs last week. St Mirren edging out St Johnstone by 3-2. I believe, Robbie, there are quite a few injury concerns for St Mirren tomorrow.
Aye, quite a lot of injury concerns. Mark O'Hara's out for 46 weeks. There's been a few players, Tanser, Taylor and Balcom, haven't been training this week. Evan Mooney's picked up a knock, and Colin McMenamin looks a doubt as well. So it's going to be fun seeing the team selection tomorrow about 2:00. I suspect there'll be a couple of youth players. I would not be surprised if any of them start, to be honest with you. I think they've all got talent. If Mooney's available, I think he'll definitely get minutes. I think Robinson needs to go with Mandron again at front. There's a lot of St Mirren fans that don't like Mandron. I think he's one of our best strikers, and I think we play much better when he plays the games when he plays. I think McMenamin and Kilty get the best out of each other when Mandron plays. A lot of people seem to think in this day and age, and obviously you want your number 9 to score goals, but a lot of people think that's all they need to do, and it's no. Mandron does so much more than just score goals. It's good to see him get the goals, but if you look at where our goals are coming from through the seasons, it's all of the pitch, midfielders, wingers, sometimes even defenders. I know we've been quite good for set pieces, so for us, it's more than just our number 9 scoring goals. Mandron's a perfect example of that, the way he holds up the ball. If you look at the pass through to Kelly and Phillips last week at St Johnstone, it was a wonderful pass. It was a really nice touch inside as well. So Mandron's got a lot of quality for me. I think he needs to start this one. I think Olasanya will probably have a few weeks on the bench. Obviously, actually, that's another one. Olasanya suspended for this game for too many yellow cards. So there's a bit of a problem with injuries right now. We sort of need January. We need the transfer window to get some new attackers in, especially. So it'll be interesting to see team selection tomorrow. But I want to see the likes of the Luke Kenny's and Evan Mooney's playing more, because they are good players. I mean, you just look at Luke Kenny's tackle last week, absolutely phenomenal. He's got no right to tackle where he tackled the ball. And then Mooney obviously getting the goal at 17. So we've got some good youth players, and for how many weeks we spent on the show rambling on about there's no youth product coming through. Well, there's just no many getting chances, and now you're starting to see glimpses of youth players getting chances because teams are getting injury problems and need to play these sort of young players. So it's good to see. It's refreshing.
Yeah, I mean, it is, Mikey. Obviously, we've got James Wilson that's now got 3 goals for Hearts, but it was a big moment for Evan Mooney last week, and it's something we do talk about all the time on the show, the fact that we want to see young players coming through. I think at times managers are scared to play them, especially if you're in a relegation battle. They're afraid to chuck them in there. But you know what? These youngsters can surprise you because they want it. They want to show what they can do. And I think it's great for the likes of Wilson and the likes of Mooney to get these chances.
Yeah, I think over the last couple of years we've seen a bit of an increase in the young Scottish talent coming through. We've seen it with the likes of Ben Doak and then Lennon Miller and David Watson, and this season it seems to be James Wilson, Evan Mooney. So, I mean, Taylor Sutherland as well coming through, Ethan Laidlaw. I mean, over the last few years, there has been that sort of switch, which is brilliant for the Scottish game because it shows that we have got some players coming through. Now, I saw a very interesting thing with David Martindale, who said that a solution to the problem would be to increase the size of the league and then make an expansion. Now, I think that, and we've sort of mentioned it before, that ship has kind of sailed. But I'd say that he's got a point. If there's games that maybe don't mean quite as much now. Yes, you're kind of sacrificing a bit of the importance of the league at times, but if you have got players that you're, instead of being in a relegation battle, you're in a mid-table scrap, which is not quite as common in Scottish football as it might be done in England, then it gives chances for the likes of another Evan Mooney or another James Wilson to develop within a side and not take a massive hit for that. So I mean, yeah, I think that there has been a sort of increase in the likes of in the Scottish talent coming through recently, but again, it is sort of few and far between. So if there's any way to, I guess, improve that, that would be brilliant. But I mean, we have seen in recent times that teams have been a bit more willing to make risks and bring through some of their youth talents in a bit earlier than they maybe would have done otherwise. And I mean, it has paid off at times because, as you said, they're trying to make that impression. They're trying to make a breakthrough in the game. So it is kind of a risk and reward strategy. But if you can kind of find a way to be able to incorporate that within Scottish football, then I think that could have a massive importance towards the future of Scottish football and the national team as well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's any, negatives with playing these youth players. I think as majority of positives, one of the small negatives I have is Evan Mooney's played one game for the club and he's already been linked with Newcastle and Arsenal, which, again, we have him tied until 2027, so he does have a lot longer on his contract, which is a good thing. If we are going to sell him, hopefully we get some good money and a good sell-on clause. But, we've actually more than just a couple games and then he's away to England, like happened with Dylan Reid last season, going into Crystal Palace. We're about to actually see these players playing. So for Evan Mooney, I'm absolutely delighted that he's in the team and we're probably going to see him play more. But, it's hard not to feel disappointed when you're seeing these links with Newcastle and Arsenal when he's only played one game. We've actually so much more of him. So I'm happy these players are getting maybe a chance, but it would just be so nice not to have, these rumours flying about. But I suppose it's football, it's always going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the one I always go back to, Mikey, is the example that I keep using is Harry Cochrane at Hearts. He was 16, scoring in Celtic, was brilliant, and then he's now playing at Cundra South. I mean, sometimes these things just don't happen for you, but I would not want to see Evan Mooney leave the league. It's like I don't really want to see David Watson and Lennon Miller leave the league because they're really good players in Scotland. But it is always going to happen. When you're doing well, you will get linked with moves. But like Robbie says, one game and he's getting linked already. But that's football for you, unfortunately. That's always going to happen.
Yeah, and unfortunately we're in a bit of a disappointing situation where Scottish talent can move down to England and not have the same pressure as, for example, if someone from, I mean, I'll use the example of Argentina, who bring through a lot of young talent, and Brazil, who bring through a lot of young talent. For them to move to a European league, that's a massive switch and a massive change, which means that they might often stay in Brazil and develop there. But the thing with Scottish football is it's a 2-hour drive to the border for some of them, and it's a much easier step to make to develop in the game because as much as we might not like to admit it, and they might try to sort of, I guess, twist things at times as Scottish football fans, English football is quite far ahead of ours in terms of quality and in terms of just how developed it actually is. And for development of young players, English football is a massive step for them. So there is that constant, I guess, sort of threat looming from English football, and that's one of those things where the difference between them and like France, for example, if a player in the lower leagues of France is developing well, they'll often go to another team in France. And for Spain, if someone's developing at a lower league in Spain, they'll move to a top league team, for example. But in Scotland, there's only really two teams where your career is going to massively develop at a young age, and that's obviously Celtic and Rangers. So we kind of, I guess, handicap ourselves in that way, and that's why we see all these young talents going down to the likes of Newcastle, Arsenal, Crystal Palace, and I wouldn't exactly know how to change that, but it's a sort of longer process. But as long as we're bringing through young talent, then I think that's a major positive.
Do you think we could benefit by having a reserve league back in the game?
Yeah, because then we're getting rid of the Lowland League having B teams in them, which I think is a ridiculous decision in the first place. And I think that having a reserve league would be important, but the only negative of that is it's not proper competitive football, and it's a massive step up towards the first team. So yeah, it's a difficult one to manage, but I think that the way things are going now is it's a very complex issue that doesn't have an easy fix.
I've said it previously when Michael and that was here. I've said it before. When I was younger, because I couldn't go to Easter Road because I was quite young at the time. If I couldn't go to Easter Road for the Hibs Hearts game, Hearts and Hibs would play a reserve game at Tynecastle, which got a decent turnout, and it was actually good because you saw young lads playing with more experienced players, and it was like proper men's football, and it was great. And I always said at the time that not having a reserve league was a bad idea. I don't think this B team is really working for me, and I'll be honest with that. I've said it before. I don't think the B team you learn anything. I think you need to play the likes of like Evan Mooney, the likes of Macaulay Tate, James Wilson. Hibs have got a few youngsters as well. I think you're actually better putting them in there and playing as proper men than playing in the B team, which I just don't think has any impact at all. That's just my personal opinion.
Can I also just say that it's a really bad precedent for the Scottish game as well? We already know the issues that the Lowland and Highland League face, like with stadiums and what happened with Bucky Thistle. And things get even worse when you're chucking in Celtic B, Rangers B, Hearts under 21s. It just completely dilutes not only that league, but it also means that these players are playing against amateurs and sort of part-time footballers, when if they were playing in a reserve league, they're playing against other players that are desperate to try and make it to the top level. So although it's not a proper competitive game, the players are really, it really means a lot for the players. It probably means more than a Lowland League game against the likes of like Forest Mechanics or not Spartans anymore, but you know the teams I'm talking about, like Civil Service Strollers, teams like that, who aren't really going to get promoted to League Two. So it kind of means more when you're playing against players that are also desperate to make it. And I mean, I don't really see many negatives with the reserve league being brought back in, apart from the fact that it's not as competitive as actual sort of like men's football, where it's it's either win the league, get relegated, stuff like that. When it's a reserve league, it might not mean as much to the players, but it just sets that tone. And if you can start to bring decent sort of attendances to the games, then you can almost kind of replicate the pressure from the crowd. And I think that there's a massive positive element with that by bringing back a reserve league.
Robbie, looking at tomorrow, obviously, I mean, Ross Kent have only won 3 games all season, all of them at home. They were not great against Rangers a couple of weeks ago. It will be a difficult test for St Mirren, but I mean, I keep on saying this, I think, every week on the show. The one player that I think Ross County have on their side that if they didn't have him, they'd struggle, is Ronan Hale, because the other lowest scorers in the league, if Ronan Hale doesn't score, Ross County don't tend to score.
Yeah, for Ross County, I think they've got to be looking confident ahead of this one, to be honest. They're unbeaten in 4 at Dingwall against us, so they definitely have a good home advantage there. When we seem to go up there, we always seem to struggle. If we can shut down Ronan Hale in this game and keep them quiet, I don't see where else the goals are going to come from, to be honest. They don't have many other creative starts, and I've got to say, if we do not test Jack Hamilton in this game more than 5 times, I'll be disappointed. He is rotten in goals.
Oh, God.
He's a really, really bad goalkeeper. So I think in terms of tomorrow, we've got to test him. If he plays in net, I think he will. I don't know if there's any other Ross County goalkeepers that could play, but it'll be interesting. I think I'm intrigued to see our lineup, because we could be starting with Peter Rominski in goal, who we've not seen much. I think he's played actual one first team appearance against Rangers. We could start with Evan Mooney, Luke Kenny. There could be a few good players in this team. So it'll be interesting to see how we get on, but we need to win this. To be honest, looking at our next couple of games, we've got Rangers, Dundee, Kilmarnock and Celtic. That's tough. I think Kilmarnock and Celtic are away as well, so we need to start picking up points. It was a vital win against St Johnstone. We needed to win that. This one could be even bigger depending on how the next few games goes, because these are the type of points where if we want to be up the top 6 and we want to be trying to get more European moments, we need to win games like this. And being, losing and drawing 1 in the last 4, it's no good. It's not a good record, so we need to try and beat that record, just like we did at McDermott Park. I think we had a record of something like 2 wins and 11 or something like that. We only beat them in the last 5 tries at McDermott Park. It was some mental start like that, so we need to overcome these sort of tough away days and try and get away with the 3 points.
I mean, Mikey, as bad as Hearts have been, you obviously saw Ross County last week at Easter Road. like I said, they had chances. Do you see enough in their squad that suggests they can get safe? Because I generally don't.
In terms of personnel, no. I think that the fact the league's so open, it gives them the opportunity. But I know it's been touched upon, and I think he was actually all right in spells last season at Livingston when he actually played. But Jack Hamilton, his performance at Easter Road on Saturday was. I mean, I'd struggle to say a goalkeeping performance which I saw worse. Maybe Trevor Carson against Hibs last season with Dundee. And he's a decent goalkeeper, Trevor Carson, and I've actually spoke to him a few times. He's a nice guy. Same with Jack Hamilton, but his performance on Saturday was, it was unbelievable. The amount of terrible distribution he had, and some of the chances. You were kind of just thinking that if you shot from anywhere, you had a good chance of scoring. So St Mirren have to capitalise on that. But I think Ross County, we know what we're going to get from them. They've got a decent back line. Probably not much going forward apart from that sort of influential striker. We've seen it in the past with Liam Boyce and Simon Murray, players like them. It's a very typical Ross County squad. But I mean, the sort of Premiership quality players, or not Premiership quality, the sort of quality players that you're looking at are pretty few and far between now. They've not got a flair player like a Jan Danda in that team anymore, or like a Hungbo or a Regan Charles Cook, someone like that to kind of add to Ronan Hale. So I think they're in big trouble this season. But look, they're not bad up in Dingwall. They can use that to their advantage, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go and win this game because St Mirren have their injury problems, and Ross County, if they're going to win games, they have to be up in Dingwall. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they win this game, but I do think they'll be in big trouble this season.
Thanks to Paul for that comment, by the way.
Because Paul's going 2-1 Ross County.
That's why
I appreciate it, Paul. Thank you.
What's your prediction, Robbie?
2-0 St. I need to be confident, but again with the injuries, we need to get through to January, and we need more points. I think there's 3 games between now and January. We need at least 6 to see us right through. And then when January comes, we need a striker because obviously missing Van Veen now. Now the squad with a few injuries as well. It's an attacking position that is very, very low numbers, so it'd be nice to get into January. And I know we've been speaking to a few strikers, but I heard from Robinson. Apparently one's a former Dundee striker. I've been sat trying to work that out. I can't figure out who that is, but it'll be interesting to see who we get in next.
Mikey, prediction for that one?
I'd say 2-1 Ross County. As much as that's not ideal for Robbie to hear, but I think that Ross County are good up and down.
I'm going to go 1-0 St Mirren just to keep Robbie happy. 1-0.
I would just quickly say. I'd just quickly say, if we were to kind of put any guesses on the former Dundee striker, who would you reckon it'd be? Because I'd say probably Bakayoko would probably be the leading one, I'd say.
That's not a bad shout.
I think that would be my shout as well. I did see, I know we used to have him, Zach Rudden, I think, sort of contract as well, wherever he was playing. I don't know if we'd take a punt on him again. I don't think he's very good, but so it would be interesting to see who we get.
Let's go to the final game of the weekend. That's also Sunday. That's a midday kickoff, and this time it is Dundee United, so my Sam Darby thing is going to come in handy here, which I should have said earlier. But yeah, this is a really tough game for Celtic. I think, Mikey, Sam Darby, 8 goals this season. I think he's been outstanding. You would expect Celtic to win this, but I think United are capable of making this difficult. They currently sit 5th in the league on 24 points. This, I don't think, will be a comfortable Celtic win.
It's a difficult one because even though Dundee United are doing well and they're actually massively overperforming, Celtic can just go and steamroll anyone on their day, regardless of how good they are. Just look at Aberdeen in the semi-final. The fact is that Tannadice gives Dundee United a good chance. I think that they'll, as you said, I think they'll keep it close in the game. But I just can't look past Celtic. I think that they're just so good. And I think that even if a team like a Dundee United puts in a really good performance, I just think Celtic have got the quality to go and win it late. They can score at any time in the game. They have players. They have any player can score for them, and it's just one of them where the levels between Celtic and literally everyone else is unbelievable. So, although I think it'll be a tough challenge, I think Celtic will find a way, as they always seem to do.
Robbie, a Dundee United player sitting top of the goal scoring chart, Sam Dalby, nobody would have expected that. But what a season he's had. He's a physical presence, he's strong, he's a natural finisher. He will absolutely cause that Celtic defence problems on Sunday.
Yeah, he's the big player for the game. I know another striker for Dundee United, Louis Moult, is facing a few weeks on the sidelines, coming for Goodwin. So I know United, they've had a few injury issues as well, but Sam Dalby, I mean, what a season he's having. I believe it was the first 3 or 4 games, didn't get score a single goal. Obviously, I think he's on loan phase at Watford, but he's really kicked on since then. He seems to be scoring every single game. He's such a big threat up there. I think the one thing about Dundee United is they're another one of these teams that I think they've got even the 4th or 5th best squad in the league now. I think in terms of the actual squad altogether, I think it's a pretty weak squad. But one of the things Dundee United do well is the experience that they have and the experience that Jim Goodwin is using. They can graft at results. It's I don't want to keep saying the same words, but it's these teams that are in the bit of mid-table and sort of pushing at the top 6 right now, like the Dundee Uniteds, Motherwells, all that sort of stuff. They can graft at these results, and it's something that Dundee United's been able to do all season, and that's why they're sitting as high as they are. And full credit to Jim Goodwin, because obviously, we speak about it all the time, but after the Aberdeen job, was it going to be, another one of these bad seasons in the Premiership? But it's turned out to be a very, very good season. I think a lot of people predicted Dundee United to go down when the season was, sort of starting with predictions and stuff, but they've went completely opposite line. I think it's where Dundee United should be. I think they're a team that can compete up in the Premiership. There's no doubt about that. I feel like they had the sort of, Hearts season where they get relegated. They come back up, and I think they'll be fine. Obviously, Hearts are going through a bit of a different scenario right now, but for Dundee United, they've got to be confident. For Celtic, they've got to be even more confident if they win that cup final. Everything about Celtic right now is just so positive. I know it wasn't exactly the best performance against Dundee United, not Rangers, sorry, but they got the job done on penalties. And look, they still scored 3 goals, even with that bad a performance. They still found a way to score. So I suspect it'll be the same. I think it's been about a decade since Dundee United last beat Celtic at Tannadice. I see that continuing right through. I think Celtic will, as Mikey said, I think Celtic will find a way to win this game. I don't think it'll be as comfortable as maybe, the likes of your 9-0 have been in the past, but I suspect it'll be comfortable enough where they'll probably win by a couple of goals.
Mike, I know we can look at the Edinburgh clubs, but do you think United's been the surprise package this season?
From a positive standpoint, yeah, because a newly promoted side, but it's not a sort of. It's one of them where it's actually more common that a newly promoted side will actually do well. I mean, from the last few newly promoted sides in 2021 to 22, it was Hearts that went and finished third. That season, it was I can't remember who came up now, but I know that there was one in the season where Kelly came up and they ended up surviving and then pushing on to finish 4th. Dundee United came back up and then that season finished 4th. So it's not out the realms of possibility for a newly promoted side to do well. But I think with the fact that it's Jim Goodwin as manager, who, especially going into the season, wasn't rated very highly by a lot of people, and the squad they have, as Robbie said, it's not the best that we've seen. I think that it is a surprise to see him doing so well, but I think that the main thing for them is that they need to shore up the defence, because to concede 4 goals last game out was obviously not ideal. And if they don't improve on that, then it could be a really poor sort of afternoon for them against such a free-flowing side like Celtic. But I assume they will. And I think they're going into the sort of mid-stage of the season, they need to just try and keep a similar performance level to what they've done recently. And I think they'll be absolutely fine going into the second half of the season. And I think they can, again, similar to Motherwell, they can go on and try and push for Europe. And I mean, with the sort of closeness of the league, they can very much go and do that.
Yeah, I mean, Robert, you're spot on about Celtic being on a high. They've just won the cup. They will win the league, I think, by quite a few points now. Sorry to Aberdeen. But, I mean, you just look at that Celtic side now and they are frightening. And we've mentioned it previously on the European shows, when we do the European shows. Their squad depth is incredible. They're bringing guys off the bench that would start for pretty much every other team in the league. And one player that I want to touch on is a former Dundee player, Luke McKibben. Now, when he signed for Celtic, I thought it was a great signing. And any game he's played has been very impressive. Earning goals hasn't been brilliant. But this is where Celtic's squad depth can come in, because he could easily start on Sunday and be the best player in the park. Celtic squad depth's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's mad how deep this squad is. I think obviously I think there was news that Forrest picking up an injury for 6 weeks. Again, they have another player that can go in there. I think they've got Yang out in the right that could easily just step into that position. So Celtic have a lot of options. And I suspect they will make changes. I think based off of the final. I think you look at the way Taylor played. I don't think Taylor had a particularly excellent final. He might drop him. Give Valley a chance. I wouldn't surprise me, but as you say with McGowan, it could so easily come into a team. And when you ask Celtic fans the sort of team predictions for the weekend, they struggle to always pick the midfield because there is that many good players. You've got Hatate, Bernardo, you've got McGowan, Engels. There's so many options in there that could easily go into that midfield. So apart from obviously Callum McGregor, who you've got to imagine is going to be in the award most weeks. It is very open. There's a real chance here for McGowan if he can perform well enough to go and grab that starting spot. And it would be good to see for one of these players that, again, as we were talking about earlier, comes through Dundee as a young player, moves to Celtic and actually goes on to get into their first team, because it doesn't happen often, and when it does, it's always nice to see. Obviously, there was links that came out last night that Kieran Tierney might be available if we go back to Celtic. It would be interesting to see if that would happen next season as well.
Absolutely. Let's get prediction for this one. United against Celtic. Mikey.
2-1 Celtic.
Robbie.
Yeah, I think Dundee United will score. I think they've scored in every game since October in the league anyway, so I think there'll be goals. I'm actually going to go 3-2 to Celtic. I think it'll be a close game.
I'm also going to go 2-1 Celtic. It'll be very tight. We've got about 5 minutes to go. Let's touch on the Championship. So a game tonight, Queen's Park against Raith Rovers. That's on BBC. And then games tomorrow, Airdrie against Partick Thistle, Falkirk against Hamilton, Livingston against Ayr, and Morton against Dunfermline. Mikey, any particular games stand out there for you? Obviously, Falkirk were beaten 5-2 by Ayr last week, but during the week, the red card that Falkirk got has been rescinded. Title race back on again?
Well, I think that it will be a title race between them and Livingston. It's pretty clear to see that Falkirk are the more sort of, I guess the word you could say is the more extravagant side, the side that's going to go and score 3, 4, 5 goals in a game. Livingston are much more sort of rigid, and they're going to win games 1-0, 2-0. And if you're looking at that for an entire season, you'd probably give the edge to Livingston for being more of a sort of consistent side. But I mean, I think the way that Falkirk have started, I think it would take a very good sort of performance from Livingston to get anything at Falkirk away. So I think it will be a decent title race, but I wouldn't put any money on who would win the Championship this season, because I think that although Livingston probably have the more assured squad, the more, I guess, established squad, I think that the way that Falkirk have been playing over the course of the season would probably give them the edge. So it'll be very tough. But as for a game that I'm sort of looking forward to, it'll probably be Falkirk Hamilton tomorrow. I can see there being a lot of goals in that game. Both sides, well, Hamilton especially, are not the best defensively, but can score goals going forward. They've got Ollie Shaw, who's the top goal scorer. And for Falkirk, obviously, we know the threats that they carry. So I think that'll be the highest scoring game. But I am interested to see Livingston Ayr United, because that'll be the sort of the main event of the second against third, and obviously Ayr on a high, Livingston on a high, and I'll be interested to see how that game pans out.
Yeah, Robbie, that's the game that I'm looking at. Livingston against the United. Obviously, Ayr United, that 5-2 win last week, they're flying under Scott Brown. That could be a really good game.
Yeah, it's hard to look past Livingston there. Both teams are really high on the table, both wanting to try and push for promotion. So that'll be interesting. But I mean, you looked at the other end of the table. I mean, can Airdrie finally get another win when they take on Partick? I don't know. They just seem so bad this season compared to what we sort of had a couple of seasons ago with them. Morton versus Dunfermline as well, down at the bottom of the table class. I wonder who'll come out and top in that one. So there's some really, really good games up and down the Championship card, and that's what's good about it. There is so many games that you can look at up and down the card and go, this could be interesting.
I mean, just to finally finish, Mikey, when we talk about managers under pressure, 5 points Airdrie got this season. We've talked about Rhys McKay previously. He's still the manager. I mean, I suppose you've got to give Airdrie credit for keeping him in the job, but surely at some point he's got under pressure.
Well, I was actually at the Airdrie Livingston game on Tuesday night, and I do have to say Airdrie are really, really poor. They've won one game this season. I think they've got 3 draws, and performance-wise, I mean, on Tuesday they were absolutely terrible. So, but the main thing for them is that they've got decent players, the likes of Chris Mockery, who actually went up with Dundee United last season. They've got Adam Frizzell, who was a decent player for Kelly a few years ago. And the overall squad isn't too bad. It's just results aren't going in their favour. A lot of narrow defeats. But on Tuesday they were really poor. They didn't look like they'd ever get a goal. If that game went on another 2 hours, it didn't look like they'd score. And there's not really anything going forward for them. Defensively, they're quite poor as well. So, yeah, I think Rhys McCabe, although you could put any manager in that job and they wouldn't do very well, I think Rhys McCabe is under massive pressure. And, yeah, I struggle to see where the points come from for Airdrie at the moment. And I think that game against Partick on at the weekend could get very ugly for them.
Well, our time is done, and so is our time for 2024. Thank you to Mikey. Thank you to Robbie for coming on. Thank you to all your comments. Thank you to everyone that's participated in the show this year. It's been much appreciated. We will do it all again next year, of course. But it's been a really good show, as always. Thank you, as always, to everyone today. If you're going to a game this weekend, enjoy it. I probably won't be enjoying it as much from behind the couch as Hearts take on St Johnstone. But anyway, have a fantastic Christmas, have a great new year, and we will do this all over again in 2025. See you later, folks.